Welcome to our council meeting today. Just a reminder to everybody that this is being live streamed, and if we can just turn off our phones and pop them out of reach. And if you do need a break, do indicate to the chair. I thank you. Before I ask Councillor Bentley this morning to open our hui with a karakia, I would just like to pass our collective condolences on to the whānau of Dudley Rotorua, David Epiraima and Haki Hiha. They were killed while working on the roadside at Pukuwai earlier this week. Condolences also go to their employers, Higgins, one of the council contractors who these three men worked for. Two of these three were former long-serving Castle Core staff. So when something as tragic as this happens in the line of their work, the families are very affected, and our condolences go out to them and to the staff members of Infracore that used to work with them, to their family, to the wider community. We heard this morning at the opening of the Te Arawa Soldiers Memorial that there's a service going to happen at Te Puia, so this is very widespread and quite devastating for those families immediately involved, and I'm sure you all wish us to extend our thoughts to them. I think we will take a moment's silence just to remember them. Thank you. And now, Councillor Bentley, if you could please open our hui.
Almighty God, who alone is the leader of all mankind and the fountain of all knowledge, send thy blessing upon us, your servants this day, as we strive to do all things good for the betterment of the people of Rotorua district. May we be tolerant in ourselves at all times. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Now we call for any apologies, and we have had a late apology from Councillor Kumar. Do I have a mover? That apology, Councillor Rokautate, seconded Councillor Gould. There appear to be no other apologies. I'll put that motion to the vote that the apology from Councillor Kumar be accepted. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Any declarations of interest? No, there appear to be none. Urgent items not on the agenda. I wish to advise that I'm aware of one urgent item, namely the appointment of an elected member to represent Rotorua Lakes Council on a community reference group, which is being established to implement the action plan to reduce the risk and impact of former storm events around Nongataha. I want to say that this wasn't on the agenda. The information was received about the formation of that group after the agenda was put together. The discussion can't be delayed until a subsequent meeting, as expressions of interest that were called collectively by the two councils for the community reference group closed today. And I'm asking for a mover. I shouldn't move. A mover and a seconder for the motion that a confidential urgent item to endorse the appointment of the Rural Community Board Chair Shirley Trumper to the Community Reference Group to develop an action plan to reduce the risk and impact of future storm events in Nongataha be dealt with at this meeting. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Sometimes these things arise. Are there any other urgent items not on the agenda? Yes, Councillor Stewart.
I seek your advice. I don't know what is the appropriate procedure to raise this issue. I've done my homework in terms of matters regarding the Code of Conduct and the standing orders of Council, and I just wondered where you would like me to raise that in terms of the agenda, because I don't want it to go on confidential, because I think the public need to know what's going on around this place where confidential stuff has been leaked right, left and centre. Letters to the editor are emanating from around this table, and I understand that the Audit and Risk Committee are the ones that will investigate it, but I just want to raise it and seek members' guidance in terms of whether this is serious enough to go to the Audit and Risk Committee.
Is there any one particular
item? Oh yes, it emanated from my meeting. Councillor Kumar left the meeting at 12:30, so he didn't even know what was raised. It was in relation to the confidential item regarding the sculpture. And I picked the paper up. It was strictly confidential, and the motion that was moved unanimously, as I was in the chair. And then on the following Monday, a member of the RDRRs wrote a letter to the editor questioning why that particular item, and detailing what that item was, questioning why that item was confidential. So she was made aware of what we had discussed. I, as chair of the committee, replied to that and believed that that was a breach of the confidentiality aspects of our code of conduct. The Daily Post have come back to me, but I don't think they've printed the letter. I haven't seen it yet, but this is not the first time. It's happening all the time, and it's impacting on the CEO and senior management's ability to do their job, because they're now very nervous about what of a confidential nature they can share with you as the mayor and us as elected representatives around this table. And I think it's a travesty. This has been happening for 2.5 years in this triennium, that things have been constantly leaked, ending up on the RDRR's website within an hour, within 2 hours of matters that have been released to elected members only, not of a confidential nature, but also confidential matters, being up on the RDRR's website within 2 hours of them being released. CEO material to elected members, confidential matters involving current works that are in place, etc., etc. So I've now raised it, so I think I've tormented over this for some time, and I see you're seeking advice from Una. I think I need to put it in writing, but I don't know how to table it, whether I send it to the Chief Executive Officer and get it investigated by the Audit and Risk. But then lies the danger, Madam Chair. It's going to cost money for the Risk and Audit Committee to investigate these particular breaches that I'm going to highlight. And quite frankly, I and the public have had a gutsful of finding out stuff that we thought was confidential around this table and to elected members, that is rural and community board members and Tito, and yet they're ending up in the media within minutes, 120 minutes of us having access to those off our computers. Now, I did raise it with the CEO. I haven't just gone off left field. I did raise it with the CEO, and I understand from an IT expert that because we own the website, we own the emails, that particular email that the Chief Executive Officer sent to all of us was only sent to elected members. So it wouldn't take much for the IT people to research who actually forwarded that on, or if it wasn't forwarded on, the Risk and Audit Department will have to investigate who actually gave it to the RDRR so that they could put it on the website. Subsequent to discussed at that, that was taken down. I must admit that that particular email was taken down, but it was out there for public disclosure. I mean, the reality is we might as well not have confidential. We might as well just have everything out in the open. We declare, as chairs, both Metapeka and I are careful that we read, and our governance group are very careful that we only go into confidential under the matters as contained in the Local Government Act. We quote what those sections are and the reasons why. I don't mind being criticised for going into confidential, but I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is the stuff that we are discussing in confidential is being leaked from someone around this table, and it's got to stop. I warned 4 months ago one particular councillor to stop doing what he had done to me personally. That has obviously been ignored, I think. But I think if what I'm worried about, and why I say I torment it, is because it's going to cost us money to bring the Risk and Audit Committee, of which I'm a member and I'll stand down from it, the ability to investigate and bring it forward to Council for action. Now, in the Code of Conduct, it's quite specific what the courses of action are for the Risk and Audit. I thought it was a minor thing, but it is just going on and on and on. And now, in discussions with the Chief Executive Officer, he hasn't said it directly to me, but I get the impression that it is now affecting his role to communicate with elected members with the danger of that confidential information of a private or a commercially sensitive nature being released to the public. And I know the person who was part of the confidential item in my meeting, which I haven't named, even in the Daily Post reply I didn't name them, I was very careful with that, is also aghast that that matter was released out into the public domain.
Well, thank you, Councillor Stewart. You raise a level of high councillor concern and elected members across the board, and a principle really of a high trust model that we discuss in public matters of public interest, but only those that go to confidential have an impact on from the Local Government Act, and we take advice. It's not a chair decision that this goes to confidential. We take advice. I think you raise issues. I'm not sure if you're asking for that wider discussion today in confidential, which is where it probably should go for us to hammer out rather than now. And or are you asking for a direct referral? I'll just finish.
We have discussed it in confidential.
Charles, I'll just finish. Or are you asking for direct referral of this to the Chief Executive to put on the agenda for the Audit and Risk Committee? Do you want the discussion first in confidential today?
I think it's around the table. I'd like to hear what some of my colleagues have got to do, because we have handled it before in confidential and it hasn't stopped. Now it's out in the public domain, confidential information. So I'm quite happy that the matter be referred to the Chief Executive Officer. I'll provide him with the detail behind the issues that I'm raising, and he can seek advice accordingly that way.
I think that's appropriate. Are there any other suggestions? Yes, Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Worship. I think the only thing I'd add to the korero thus far is that every decision to take a matter into confidential is a democratic vote of this council. So it requires a majority of members to agree. And so we've all voted to treat a matter as confidential, and it behoves us, therefore, to abide by that democratic vote to go into confidential. And I would support the Chief Executive investigating this matter before we have a discussion, so we know we're actually what we're hammering out.
Does anyone else wish to add anything? Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just having a quick look at the Code of Conduct, and it very, very clearly states there under honesty and integrity that members should not place themselves in a situation where their honesty and integrity may be questioned, should not behave improperly, and should on all occasions avoid the appearance of such behaviour. And further, under contact with the media, comments made to the media must observe the other requirements of this guide, i.e. not disclose confidential information or compromise the impartiality or integrity of staff. This is very clearly a breach of the Code of Conduct. I think it should be investigated.
Thank you, and I think that's very clear, and value the input, because we are concerned. We've dealt with this before. We don't need to debate it more. Do you want to add something new?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to add, I'm pleased that Councillor Sturt has raised this, the reason being we thought it had gone away, but it's been around for some years and seems to be stepping up a bit. I wonder, if it's because it's election year, and I think if we don't put a stop to it now, some other awful things will happen during this time. So, yeah, I think it should be investigated, and
we
through
don't
the
need a
CEO.
resolution. We note that that's the appropriate action to take at this stage. Councillor Sturt, closing.
Thank Councillor Kent. I knew that he would, in his usual judicious way, have a look up the Code of Conduct whilst we were speaking, and quite clearly, and I'll quote from it, it says, elected members are free to express a personal view in the media, but they must observe that other requirements of the Code of Conduct not to disclose confidential information or compromise the impartiality or integrity of staff. Elected members must adhere to the standing orders adopted by Council under Local Government Act 2002, which we sign when we are sworn in. These standing orders are subject to the same legal requirements as the Code of Conduct with regard to the adoption and amendment. And just further, it says, and it's quite plain, elected members must not use or disclose confidential information for any purpose other than the purposes for which the information was supplied to the elected member. Failure to do so may expose council to prosecution. A breach of confidentiality could indicate lack of good faith and could be relevant to the assessment of personal liability. Therefore, any breach of this clause will be treated seriously and will immediately be referred to the Audit and Risk Committee for resolution in accordance to clause 4 of this code. So I'm quite happy, Madam Chair, as the instigator of this matter lay on the table and be referred to the CEO, and he can come back and give us some advice on that matter. So in conjunction with Una, who's up to play on the Code of Conduct and the standing orders, of course.
So I've taken advice from Una, who suggests that it just be a noting. We don't need to pass a resolution, that is the action that we'll undertake together. Thank you for that discussion. Confirmation of council minutes, the minutes of the council meeting 13th of December, wee while ago now. Do I have a mover that the minutes of the council meeting held 13th of December be confirmed as a true and accurate? Thank you, Councillor Gould. Seconded, Councillor Bentley. Are there any corrections? There appear to be none. All those in favour, please say aye. Seconded, carried. Now, the release of confidential items, it's page 15, that the report release of confidential items be received. Do I have a mover and a moved? Councillor Donaldson, seconded, Councillor Hunt. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Carried. We move now to page 18, recommendations from other committees. A mover and a seconder that the report you move? You second. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. And now we need a mover and a seconder for the motion from that. I'd like to read it so that it's on the record. That the following recommendations of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on the 14th of February 2009 be adopted. Recommendation 1, Waikiki Thermal Pools new lease. That Council enter into a new lease for 20 years from the 1st of June 2020 to the 30th of May 2040 with the Living Waters of Waikiki Valley Limited. Do I have a mover? Councillor Gould, seconded. Councillor Kent. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? If not, so now I should put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Now we have a resolution to go into public excluded. There are 3 items for consideration, public excluded. 1, to adopt the confidential minutes of the previous meeting. 2, recommendations from other committees, the Hemo Sculpture and the Polynesian Spa admission charge increase. And 3, the report on the contract for minor works of transport 219 to 222. And 4, elected committee members, other committees. And the reasons for this are to enable commercial or industrial negotiations or commercial sensitivity. Do I have a mover and a seconder that we go into public excluded? Thank you. Moved, Councillor Gould. Seconded, Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Yes.